Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another exciting The Color of Science digital edition. As you know, we bring spectacular guests here for a one-hour conversation to make sure you get exposed to the diversity in science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And I could not be more excited to talk about today's guest. Before I get to that, though, I have to give a shout out to COSI Connects, which is the umbrella and universe of access to all things science content through the COSI website. So go to cosi.org, COSI Connects, and get access to all great information related to science. I also have to give a shout out to our presenting sponsors, Battelle and L Brands, as well as our lead funder, the Curtis T. and Beverly Cheeks Jewel Family Foundation. Additional support by CAS, Honda, and KeyBank have been instrumental. And of course, this is in partnership with the Garvey Institute, where the Color of Science program was born. So with that, it is my distinguished pleasure to talk about today's rock star, no pun intended, incredible guest that I'm interviewing. I'm talking about none other than astronaut Sunita Williams, also known as Sunny. I'm just going to read you a little bit about her background because it's so phenomenal, and then I'm going to invite her up so we can have the Q&A. So Astronaut Williams was selected as an astronaut by NASA in 1998 and is a veteran of 2 space missions, Expedition 1415 and Expedition 3233. She's currently training for the first post-certification mission of Boeing's Starliner spacecraft, the second crewed flight for that vehicle, and her 3rd long-duration mission aboard the International Space Station. I mean, this is incredible. Astronaut Williams and her crewmates are working closely with Boeing to develop their new spacecraft systems, which will provide round-trip crew transportation services to the International Space Station, and along with SpaceX's Crew Dragon, return the ability to launch humans, yes, me and you listeners and viewers, into space from United States soil. There are so many other things. She's a retired US Navy captain, just an incredible person. And yes, you know the Center of Science and Industry, COSI, which was ranked the #1 science museum by USA Today 2 years in a row. We're based in Columbus, Ohio. And yes, that's the very same state as both Astronaut Williams' birth and our famous Senator John Glenn, who's an incredible astronaut as well. With that, please welcome astronaut Sunita Williams.
Hi, everybody. It's so good to be here with you today. Just excited to be part of the museum.
So I got to tell you, I mean, I have the pleasure of meeting amazing people like you. And every now and then I get super excited. I'm jumping out my socks, no pun intended, to have this conversation. You're just an incredible figure, a role model to everybody, boys, girls, men, and women. And you are a phenomenon, not just on our great planet Earth here, but also, of course, out in outer space. So thank you for spending some of your time to share some of your great story with us.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just, like I said, an honor to be here. And, you know, there's a little bit of luck involved with life and the way it you know, turns right and left and backwards sometimes. But, you know, it's if you have a good attitude, it's amazing. Great things seem to work out.
I mean, you know, let's just riff off of that for a minute, because one of the cool things, we have people from all ages. We talk about COSI serves people from the womb to the tomb. So we have a wide range of people, but we also do have a lot of kiddos. Let's talk a little bit about what you just said. This idea of having a good work ethic, working hard, and just doing things you love. Unpack that a little more.
Yeah, you know, people always ask me, did you want to be an astronaut since you were a little kid? And I actually have to say, no, I feel terrible to say that. I know some people, you know, have a straight trajectory and wanted to be an astronaut since they were 5 and made it. I was not that kid. And there's a lot of people who are not that kid, right? You know, you have your parents who might be influences on you, your teachers, your friends who mentor you or like expose you to some stuff. I was born in Ohio, but shortly thereafter, we moved to Massachusetts. My dad was an immigrant from India and a doctor, and Boston, luckily enough, has a lot of good colleges. My mom was from an immigrant family from Slovenia, from Euclid, Ohio, as a matter of fact. And so she left her whole family to come to Massachusetts. My father, of course, left his family to come to the United States. So, you know, they just sort of dug from the bottom up. I saw that my mom, of course, is a huge animal lover. My dad's a doctor. I wanted to be a veterinarian. I worked hard at school. My brother and sister, darn them, they got all good grades. So I had to get good grades because I was the youngest. We were swimmers, swam as much as we can, had Olympics on the brain as people are watching the Olympic trials right now. It's like so motivating. That's the things that I wanted to do. But when I applied to college, I applied to places that I thought I wanted to go to pursue a career to be a veterinarian. And in my small mind, I didn't get into the ones that I thought I had to get in to do that. And I was like, now what do I do? So my brother had recommended the military, and thinking about a Naval Academy or West Point or Air Force Academy. It also offset some of the cost of going to college, of course, because that's always on everybody's mind about like, how much do I want to pay to go to school? And so on a whim, I joined it. Had to cut my hair, sort of my dreams of being a veterinarian, sort of put at least to the side, and just sort of had to deal with that. And it was a door that I never thought would be opened, and it was absolutely awesome. I love the leadership, the followership, the teamwork aspects of the school. Sort of clicked with me, not with everybody, but it totally clicked with me. And I was getting ready to graduate from there, thinking about what I was going to do in the military. Wanted to be a diver because I was a swimmer, and that billet had already been taken. So I picked naval aviation to fly airplanes and fly jets. I've never done that before, never flown airplanes before. So I went through flight school, wanted to fly jets because, Top Gun came out. Tom Cruise is super cool. And I got helicopters, so like every single time I was trying to go straight down some path, it sort of took a turn. But helicopters were so great. I loved it. And it really made my engineering science brain start wondering, like, how the heck does this thing work? Airplane is sort of simple, but a helicopter, like, how does this work? I pick up the collective and it flies. I don't get it. And so I applied to test pilot school. And that was the first time I had the opportunity to come here to Johnson Space Center, where I am right now, and meet people who worked and lived in space, and was like, hey, I had, John Young was the guy who talked to us. He's like, I had to learn how to fly helicopters to land on the moon, or a version of it. I'm like, I already have that skill. Maybe one day I'll land on the moon. So I sort of applied, got my master's degree, pressed, figured out what I had to do, and magically enough, with a little bit of luck, got in, and here I am.
So look, what an amazing story. So for you listeners out there, imagine this. You can begin wanting to be a veterinarian, and as a default, you become an amazing NASA astronaut. How cool is that? But I really love that narrative, though, because all jokes aside, as you said, it wasn't a straight shot. You didn't grow up necessarily looking at the heavens, at the stars in your backyard thinking, I want to be an astronaut. But because you worked really hard and you consistently achieved, even though that wasn't your initial plan, just like thinking you're going to be the next Tom Cruise Top Gun and fly fighter jets, but that pivoted to helicopters, but it was your work ethic and your perseverance. And look at where you are now. So this idea of, aim for the moon, but if you miss, you'll land in the stars. You are a perfect metaphor and personification of that.
Absolutely. And, part of it is also, I see today sometimes people don't get what they want, and they get a little bit bummed out about it. I mean, really having, honestly, a good attitude, like, okay, so I have this thing that I wasn't planning on. I'm just going to give it my all and do the best that I can. Sort of like you were mentioning, the work ethic, and just sort of like, hey, how do I learn from this? How do I, become a better person or a better, well-rounded professional? And all of a sudden other doors start opening up here and there. And it's pretty spectacular. It absolutely happens, but you also have to have the right frame of mind to make that happen and see it actually.
Absolutely. Yeah, we talk about that at COSI. You have to be ready. You have to be prepared for when that luck or that fortuitous event comes, you're ready to rock and roll. I do want to say, though, in your case, there was a little bit of destiny in that DNA. What do I mean by that? Well, you spent, of course, a ton amount of time at ISS, International Space Station. Those three seminal letters, ISS. But you also are a product of India, Slovenia, that ended up in space. So it was really written in the cards that you were destined to do that. So I thought that's a cute little connection. Okay, let me jump in though, because you rattled off your whole career and it's illustrious, but there's some really cool tidbits I want to pull out. So for example, when you were, you worked all over the world, different roles, all kinds of capacities in the Navy, including a diving officer, you talked about that, naval aviator. Just overall, what was it like And again, this is in general, but especially for the women who are striving to be engineers, striving to be pilots, striving to be in the military. What was it like from your time in the Navy?
Yeah, it's a great question. Again, I just sort of didn't really know exactly what I was getting myself into, to be honest with you. It was not like something I had thought about for years. It just sort of happened. And, like having to wear a uniform, having to, have a rank structure and be part of that. Obviously, at the Naval Academy, having been a minority, I think was like 10-1 when I went there. I think we started with over 100 women and graduated with maybe 60 in a class of about 1,000. So all of those things were a little bit eye-opening, but I felt like these were all my brothers. If you can join in and understand that they're not against you and they're with you, mm-hmm. and just like go with that, I think somehow that it all happens. It's pretty cool. Like, I'm not going to say it was like the easiest time ever and there wasn't any stress. I mean, gosh, like you're between 17 and 21. So just living those years of your life is stressful. But, like in this little bit odd time, place where there's a lot more men than women, it's, you sort of have to find your place. But, and again, going back to like work ethic and just being part of the team, like, hey, I want to contribute. I want to be part of this group of people. One of the really neat things about for the Naval Academy, for example, and all the service academies, you go in sort of I went in as Sunny Pandya was my maiden name. My name is Sunny Pandya. I'm a swimmer from Massachusetts. And after 1 year, you go, I'm part of the class of '87. All those other things, all those other things that define you sort of go away, and you're like, I just want to graduate with this class and be part of this team that has a bigger purpose than yourself. So I think my time in the Navy, though I would say was not simple, really solidified that idea of like, be part of something that's bigger than you, and you are, and make your contributions count. I was again then became a helicopter pilot and deployed, to the Mediterranean, the Persian Gulf, and the Red Sea, on ships with 2 helicopters, doing all sorts of logistics work. And I found that when I came here to NASA, it was so parallel. When I first started my practicing for spacewalks here, 2 people go out of the space station and, working on the space, working on something you have to change or fix or something outside. Same thing, 2 helicopters take off the deck, and then you're off to do logistics. You're always looking out for the other guy, like on a smaller level of something bigger than yourself. You're making sure the other guy's okay. Spacewalking, you're making sure that other guy's okay. It was really a good foundation for what I'm doing right now, just in general. Also, like I mentioned, doing something bigger than yourself, contributing to something scientific. Those are things that, really, I think it make you tick and make you want to be part of that team. So I think the military is just a great place to sort of find yourself too. If you're not really sure what you want to do, it's a place that will offer you all sorts of, opportunities to test out and try out new engineering and science things. Even though people don't associate that with the military, there's so many interesting schools that you can go to. Flight school, for example, dive school, for example. But even on the technician side, there's so many cool things you can learn. And I think learning is the bigger objective individually, and then as a team working on something a little bit bigger than you would even strive to imagine for yourself.
Well, Astronaut Williams, I have to tell you, you're definitely the poster child and a great ambassador for the military in general, and specifically the Navy. And my father served in the Navy as well, so huge shout out. He would agree with everything you just said. So that's a fantastic naval career. And I know you talked a little bit about the spacewalks. We're going to come to that. But after the Navy, now you're with NASA, and you're doing some really cool things. Like, you spent time in Moscow with the Russian Space Agency, with the robotics branch, and you worked at the station's, with the station's robotic arm. You were also a Nemo 2 crew member. This is a mission that sends groups of astronauts and engineers and scientists to live in Aquarius underwater laboratory, the world's only undersea research station. I mean, this is just a ridiculously cool CV. What was life like when you were living underwater, and just tell us about some of those experiences.
Yeah, it's so funny because people always say, they ask me the question, did you see aliens, when you're on the space station? Remember, the space station is pretty close to Earth. We're in our own little, our atmospheric bubble here. But when you're living underwater, there are more alien looking things underwater on our own planet than there are up floating around on the International Space Station.
Wow.
It's an amazing laboratory. So it's like a habitat, just like, the International Space Station. There's, a place where, how we monitor the life support systems. And then there's a place for living, there's a place for eating, all that type of stuff. Now the bathroom, it's a little different. We will talk about that later if you want to talk, but that's a little odd. But anyway, it's very much an amazing analog. And we got to do for spaceflight, we got to do things that are parallel to spaceflight. We had a mission control with a schedule, just like how we have it on the ISS. And then we had spacewalks or, scuba dives twice a day to do things that we were doing on the space station at the time, construction and then science, which was super cool. So we went out and we built things out of a PVC on the floor there with instructions, just sort of like how we built the International Space Station. And then secondly, we did coral science. And also when you're out, swimming around doing science, you might be getting farther and farther and farther away from the habitat, and you have to watch your air and watch the time and make sure that you can get back to the station okay, or refill your tanks or whatever you have to do. And all of that is very parallel to us living and working in space and doing spacewalks. And actually we scared each other at one point in time because we got a little bit low on gas air and when we were coming back. And so after that one time that we got a little bit low, we made it, me and Dan Tanny was my dive buddy, we made a pact that we were going to get back to the area of the habitat at least 15 minutes so we could just sort of hang around. And we would just like lay on the sand underneath. You're living at 40 feet underwater in the habitat when you're dry and not in your wetsuit. But then when you go outside, you can dive down to about 100 feet if you want to. So we're laying on the ocean floor and we were just watching all of the animals. I mean, tons of animals. If you stop for a minute, of course you see the big ones, right? Like sharks and grouper and barracuda all over the place. But if you stop for a little bit and just look, all of a sudden you'll see like the rockfish, like who are like camouflage next to the rocks. All of a sudden you see their eyes open or move and their fins move, like, oh my God. And then, something weird that's crawling around on the ocean floor. And both of us were like, really, after we started doing that every dive, we're like, there are more aliens down here at the bottom of the ocean or in the ocean than you would ever imagine. And it was just an amazing place to live and work and understand that the human body could actually do this. It's sort of like I mentioned, an analog for going to space. It's like, wow, we can do that. We need to adapt and change the way we do things, but we can live and work underwater. We can live and work in outer space. We just have to make some accommodations and understand your surroundings. And it was awesome. It was great. And we were saturation diving, which means that our bodies were all filled up with nitrogen. So we had to do a desaturation to get back up to the surface. So that was another thing where your body is undergoing all those changes, just like when you're going to space and then when you're coming back from space, your body has to be able to adapt to all of that. It's a pretty amazing thing, this thing.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, that's a great place to end this segment. I mean, it all comes down to who we are as individuals, and both mentally, the fortitude to go through this, but the physicality of it, our bodies can actually adapt both to handle space and deep within the ocean, which is just fascinating. Folks, you're listening to this incredible interview with Astronaut Williams on the Color of Science Digital Edition. Go to COSI.org, the #1 science museum in the nation, according to USA Today, 2 years in a row. Go to COSI Connects. You can check this program out and see others. It's my pleasure to be sitting down with Sunita L. Williams, none other than not only an incredible astronaut, but a deep sea explorer as well. So, all right, I, as you can tell, I'm a little enthusiastic about this interview because I'm a big fan. Let me throw out some data for our listeners. You spent a total of 322 days in space on not one, but 2 missions. and you rank second on the all-time US endurance list for females. With 50 hours and 40 minutes, you are on the second list of total cumulative spacewalk time of any female astronaut ever. So that's my mic drop moment. My question is, and I know this is probably gonna have a tough time answering this, but I have to ask, what is it like being such an accomplished person? And what is it like being such an accomplished female in a male-dominated field?
Oh gosh, I guess I don't look at it that way.
Bragging rights. You've earned the color of science COSI bragging rights. Just tell it like it is. How does it feel?
It is funny. I doubt myself though all the time. I've got the ability to. I have done some of those things, and sometimes I have to pinch myself to remind myself, like, I actually did do a spacewalk. And when somebody has some question, like, oh yeah, remember this is a good way to do that. Remember this will make it easy. And so I feel like it's just a bunch of tools in your tool belt that maybe you can help the next guys do it and maybe do it better and a little bit smarter. So sometimes I feel like I have experience, but I have so much more to learn still, but I like to share that experience as much as possible. We've had some EVAs going on just recently, this week, as a matter of fact, and I was the veteran in the back room, and a couple things were going on, and we gave some suggestions, and it's just sort of like, oh yeah, I remember being in that position at some point in time and doing that, and there was a little bit of a difficulty, but we got over it, and it's just I hope my experience is a little reassuring for the people who are doing the job right then and there, that hey, I have confidence in them. We all have confidence in them, that we've trained them, to the new guys, to do the job just as well. So, it's funny. I don't feel like that accomplishment thing is. I feel like we are doing this all together. Every now and then. I like I said, I doubt myself. I get nervous. I'm talking into a crowd of people, and I'm like, oh, I'm nervous in front of all these people, and I have to pinch myself and say, Sonny, you actually lived and went to space. You'll be okay. And to like emphasize that a little bit, I was talking to my dad about, living in space. And at one point in time, he stopped me. He goes, how come you know so much about this? And I said, Dad, because I live there. Of course I know about it. It's not like I have some big brain or anything like that. It's just like it's an experiential thing. Like I actually was there, right? So that he was like, oh yeah, I guess you were there. So it is funny. I think it's not in my nature to be like, oh yeah, I've done more of this or more of that. I don't care really. I think more so it's the experience that you have, so you can pass it on. And we need to do that, because we are doing bigger and harder things than we've ever done. Like, I'll give you an example. When I started here, spacewalks were from the shuttle only. And then we built the space station. We had a new airlock on the space station, and our spacewalks got so much more complicated, because they weren't just inside of the shuttle payload bay. They were out on this big, huge station the size of a football field, where people were going farther and farther away with their tools and connecting it up. And we even have more to do now, because we're putting new solar arrays on the space station, for example. This is stuff that when we put it together, although we had not put the major modules together, we had tried a lot of this stuff on the ground first. Now we're adding things to the space station that had never been able to have touched the hardware that's been up in space for 10, 20 years. And so this is, even one more step more difficult. And we're building on this knowledge and understanding, so we can build our gateway, which is the mini space station that will be orbiting the moon. And then from there, we'll have a lander that will go to the moon. So it's just going to get exponentially harder and harder and harder. So we have to make what we are doing right now the norms. And so that's the way I feel about my contributions. I'm one of those people who have, and all of us who have figured out some things and passed that along to make it a norm, so that we could do the next bigger step. And we're in that process. I mean, it's a super exciting time in space right now. We have commercial providers like Boeing and SpaceX, obviously going to the space station with people. We have other commercial providers bringing up logistics. We have commercial companies working together. It was a SpaceX rocket and vehicle that launched the Boeing solar array that we added to the International Space Station just this week. So it's an exciting time, and we're on the cusp of going back to the moon. Yes, it's pretty awesome. So we all have a lot to contribute. So there's no sitting still.
Well, listen, so not only are you incredibly gracious, but totally humble too. So appreciate the humility. But that's okay. It's for people like us to recognize and uplift the great things you do to inspire others. So thanks for that. So this is a question, you know, with all due respect, there's 7.8 billion people on the planet. Only a handful get to go out in space. So the one question I ask every time I have the chance to speak to an astronaut, and I'm excited to ask this one to you. When you came back to Earth from your first space experience, just like, what was that like? Like, was there a transformation? I mean, people talk about that first time you look from the space vesicle back to the planet, and oh my gosh. Just talk to us about how you felt differently from before you went to space to when you came back, if you did at all.
Oh yeah, okay, absolutely. But I have to tell you a quick little anecdote. Like on my first mission, I was on the space shuttle, and I launched on the mid deck, so I didn't have the window around me. So I'm doing my job. Like we get to space, everything's floating. Where I'm cracking up, like, oh my god, my gloves are floating, my helmet's floating. This is so cool. You know, my pencil's floating, and I'm doing what I need to do, which is getting ready. You know, fixing up the mid deck to make sure people can live and sleep and use the bathroom and cook and all that kind of stuff. That's my job, is to prepare, you know, like the RV for everybody to live in it. Mm-hmm. And our commander is up in his seat with the pilot, because they still have to do a couple burns to circularize ourselves around the planet and get us ready on rendezvous to the space station. And so at one point in time, they had a little break, and he goes, Mark Polanski goes, Sonny, come on up here. So I go floating up the ladder, which before I had to climb up, I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I just jumped up the ladder, you know, like, I mean, all these things were new and first. I'm like, oh, this is so neat. And I go up there, and there's this huge windows in front of where the commander and the pilot sit. And there's the Earth. And I'm going, wow, they're right. It's round. It's round. Like, my science teachers are right. that was the coolest thing. I was like, and it's beautiful. I mean, there's the blackness of space around it, and then this blue marble. I was just spectacular. Oh my god. And I mean, it's like almost like you can't stop looking at it. But I'm like, I have to go back to work. But I'll tell you, when I came back from space, because you're up there, and every time you look out the window, you know, be it on the space shuttle or on the space station, it's like always looking down and looking at where, you know, where's my family from, or where are my friends from? Mm-hmm. And after a while, the view starts to change. You know, at first I'm looking at it like, you know, right behind me, I know that's Cape Cod, of course. And so I'm looking at where people are. But later on, I'm looking at like how the clouds are forming, how the ice is forming as the seasons change, how the planet looks out, where it's green, where the glaciers are, where the water's different, where there's a bloom. And you start looking more like it's like a planet. Like if you look at pictures of Mars, you see craters and you see cracks. You don't necessarily see, oh, that's exactly where where we launched, where our rovers are. You actually look at it like a planet. And I think after a little while, from looking, you know, from that first impression about it being round, my first view of it, and then, you know, getting over where the people are that I love are, and then just looking at actually our planet in the solar system, it's pretty amazing. And it also, it was like in my mind, like, I have to go there. I have to go there. I have to go there. I want to see it. I want to see it in person. And I thought to myself when I came back, I am never, ever, ever watching TV. I am just going to go looking around at all these cool things and, you know, observing nature. Well, of course, that lasted for a little while, but human nature, you know, being back on Earth pulls you back to being like a normal human being in society. And of course, I do watch TV, but I don't watch it as much as I think, or, you know, do things inside the house as much as I used to do, just because there's that thing in the back of my mind. It reminds me of my amazing time in space, and how I owe it to myself. We all owe it to ourselves to get out, enjoy nature, enjoy our planet, and learn more. I mean, and learn more about each other and how we can actually all get along on this simple little blue thing that we live on, because it's the only place we have to live. It's pretty cool.
No, that's definitely cool. And I mean, I can only imagine your feeling. My hair was standing on my skin when you talked about going up through, floating through the past the ladder, and then all of a sudden, the first time on your mission, you see this massive window into this beautiful dark space, and you see Mother Earth. That must have been mind blowing. I do want the audience though to do know that she referred to her midsection as, hanging out in the RV. For the record, I've been in a recreational vehicle myself. You're in the space shuttle. That's all next level stuff. I just want to call that out. But okay, this is great. So I want to pivot from that stuff now to your experience with Boeing's Starliner spacecraft. So what are some of the new exciting developments in space travel that we should know about?
Yeah, these new vehicles are amazing. I did have the pleasure to work with SpaceX for a while, and also with Boeing as we're getting ready to launch. Actually, July 30th, let's go Starliner is supposed to be our unmanned mission launch. So everybody keep an eye out for it. But these new spacecraft are pretty incredible. Like people say, well, they're just little capsules, on the top of the rocket. What happened to the big space shuttle, the RV, that we used to build this, the space station with? Well, this is the opening door for commercialization to space. All sorts of companies being able to go up to space. I mean, I've already mentioned Boeing and SpaceX, Sierra Nevada, Virgin Galactic, Blue Origin. There's a bunch popping up where not too long ago it was just agencies or countries that had space programs. Now we have companies, individual companies in our country that are launching people and equipment into space. It's pretty spectacular. And why are they able to do that? Well, of course, NASA learned a whole lot, and we've shared as much as we can. And there's people out there with the technology changes over the last 2-4 decades with computer systems being able to do a lot of computing for us. We've really been able to implement that into the spacecraft. The shuttle, for example, is like 1970s technology. So this is a huge leap in technology and computer processing to allow these spacecraft to think and detect for themselves rather than having the person in the loop having to do that. So it's unloaded us as human beings from some of all of that tedious activity that the computers can do. Now, these spacecraft, obviously, it's still a dangerous adventure leaving the planet. So there are a lot of backup systems that we can interact with, and that's what we're training for. But they're pretty cool. SpaceX has touchscreen displays. Boeing has, just like the new Boeing aircraft, not touchscreen per se, but like edge key displays. Mm-hmm. And all that information is being processed and provided to the user inside. But, just like these new cars, I think the biggest thing that the hurdle that we have to jump over is the thing called situational awareness, making sure the operator, the guy inside, actually knows what's going on. Maybe we don't have to know all of that nitty-gritty detail, but we do have to know how the spacecraft is operating, if it's undergoing any malfunctions that we might have to step in for, or if it's on the right trajectory, if we have to change it a little bit. So it's super fun and cool to be in one of these new spacecraft, and also new spacesuits are associated with that. Each company has its own brand new spacesuit. The one I have, with Boeing is super comfortable, most comfortable spacesuit I've ever been in. You just jump in it real quick and, close the visor. And it's awesome. It's super nice. We call it the Blueberry. It's a blue suit, but it's pretty awesome. Sort of the same color that I'm wearing right now. And what else is really super cool about them? They can all autonomously dock and rendezvous and dock with the space station. We have the ability to take over and do that ourselves. They have the ability to undock and then fly to a landing site all autonomously. If we have to take over, we could do it ourselves as well for the Starliner. Pretty spectacular. And, there's also talking about the suits and the parachutes, new materials, all of that new science has been integrated into these spacecraft. And all of this is opening the door to the next step. I quickly talked about going back to the moon, but all these technologies that are going to get tried out, just like, we all have an iPhone. And so everybody talks about, okay, this application is bad, or this little part of it's bad. So we get all these users to use it, and then we can capitalize on that and get the best product and put it into our spaceships that are going even farther than low Earth orbit, back to the moon and onto Mars. So it's all a stepwise process. As you can tell, this is sort of my theme that I'm talking about here, is it's helping us take those next steps. And commercialization allows more and more eyes, different people, different ideas, so different ideas. I mean, think about it. SpaceX, brand new company, you know, building electric cars, and then Boeing, been around forever, you know, the most reliable airplanes ever. Those two thought process, how they build things, so different, but they're all creating something awesome. And we're taking the best of all these things and incorporating to our future spacecraft. So super exciting time, super, super exciting.
That is amazing, you know, because of your fortitude and trailblazing ability, and then all the science, technology, and engineering folks behind it. It's almost like you're democratizing access to space, so regular folks like us one day will be able to get out there. So again, I gotta call out, you had some classic lines in this conversation. One of them, I wanna make sure the guest heard, is you said, well, this was the coolest spacesuit I've ever put on. I mean, the fact that someone can say I put on numerous spacesuits in itself is just cool. There's all these tidbits that make this so much fun. So, okay, with that, this is the color of science. It's all about motivation, making sure everybody understands that scientists come in all shapes and colors. And if you have an interest in science or engineering, you can pursue that. So with that in mind, what advice would you have, not just for young girls, but young girls and young boys? And we'll come to adults later, but what advice do you have to young girls and young boys who are watching and listening today that have dreams of either being in space or deep sea exploration, and but right now they don't see themselves as scientists? What advice would you give to the kiddos?
Oh man, first of all, I'd say, why not? I mean, gosh, those opportunities are out there. Sometimes they're not so easy or not right in front of you, but you can find them if you start looking, if you start asking, hunt around for mentors and teachers who might have some knowledge. I'm glad you're listening to this right now, here with COSI, because obviously there's a pathway and people know how to do this type of stuff. So first of all, why not just get out there and do it? And also, secondly, particularly for young kids, don't be afraid to make a mistake. Don't be afraid to try something new and potentially even not like it. It's okay. Or even fail. It's okay. If you take away from all those things something that you've learned, maybe even just about yourself, like maybe I don't like biology because there's a lot of blood. Maybe that's the only thing you learned. That's fine, because then it might set you on a different path of looking at something else and learning about something else. But, try all those things. I mentioned my story in the very beginning. I had no idea I would end up wearing this blue suit and doing these fun things because I didn't challenge myself or think outside the box and go like, why not try something else? I sort of stuck with I had great parents, great mentors, but I sort of stuck with things that I knew. And I wish I had tried a couple more things when I was younger and maybe found something else I loved as well. And maybe I would have got to this position a little quicker, or maybe I would have done something totally else. I don't know. But my point is, you have that opportunity. When you're young, try as many things as possible and don't worry about it. Actually, life gives you second chances for sure. I will be a testament to that. My grades in college were not great, but life gave me a second chance, and I got a master's degree, and things started to click after that. It will work. Have a positive attitude.
I love it. Such a positive and thoughtful message. Bottom line, you can do it. Stick to it. Yes. Don't let anybody tell you no. And what's really cool, and I appreciate you sharing that, you didn't necessarily have straight A's in college. I mean, that's such an important point. People are always nervous. Oh, I got a B or a C, or I even failed a course. It's okay. If you are passionate about it and have the drive, you can achieve it. So thank you for that message. We're about to take some questions from the audience that were submitted earlier. I have them. So I'm just going to ask one last question for myself. Again, folks, you're listening to the Color of Science Digital Edition. I have the pleasure, Dr. Frederick Burley, President and CEO of COSI, to interview none other than the amazing astronaut, Sunita, AKA Sunny Williams. Just an incredible story. So my last question is, what advice would you give to adults about how they should think about science. We live in this great country, greatest country in the world, but unfortunately, there's a growing science illiteracy. Of course, the pandemic is a story that impacted us, and yes, we got through that or are getting through that because of vaccines, which of course science helps bring out. But just in general, what advice around science and technology, engineering and math would you share with Joe and Jane Public about how they should think about that?
It is really, STEM is really our only way forward. We can be happy in sitting in this state that we are right now. Like you mentioned, with COVID, without vaccines, and be really nervous about life and like worried that, there's everything's out of our control. Well, it's actually not, like if you engage in science, technology, engineering, and math, you will see that there's pathways through these really difficult problems. And it doesn't, you're not going to solve them overnight. It's not going to be like right now. It's chipping away at that type of stuff. And along the way, you learn and discover even things that you would have never, ever even thought to ask the question about, which is pretty cool. I mean, the process, my dad always said, stop and look in the foliage. And I was like, oh, God, we're on another one of these drives where I have to, go someplace and look out the window all the time. But his point was, you're missing the big picture if all you're looking at is at the goal and you don't see all this science that's going on around you that's changing life and changing the way we operate and do things. I mentioned quickly about Starliner, and in the lead up to that, how much technology has changed in the last 40 years. In our lifetime, in the kids' lifetime, my gosh, kids in high school, look back and see, what your phone looked like 20 years ago, for example. Well, how we're interfacing today, on Zoom with each other. 10 years ago, we weren't doing this. And we've been able to do this because people have saw a problem, started to solve it, and went, oh, why don't I try this? Oh, there's a pandemic. How are we going to adapt and work to this? I mean, it's in our human nature to be able to adapt and change. And the way we do that, feeling not scared about it, is go out and tackle it and be part of it. And that's what STEM is all about. So, I mean, it is the way to go forward. It's the way to be productive. It's the way to be a society and live and understand each other and learn from each other. I think it's huge. And I can't imagine, just not being engaged in STEM every day of my life. I can't even imagine it. It would be pretty boring and pretty stagnant.
I love that answer. I mean, in short, STEM is everywhere. It's all around us, and it holds the keys to all the solutions that help keep us healthy and well moving forward. This is great. So now my favorite part, I'm going to pull some of the questions that were submitted earlier from some of the faithful guests of the Color of Science program. So this one is from Tanya L. Not sure how old Tanya is. She didn't give her age. Normally they do. But her question is, and you're going to love this one, is the moon hollow? And if so, how does it keep illuminating without some kind of core energy source?
Ooh, interesting question. Very interesting question. Well, I don't think it's hollow, for one thing. I think it sort of is a mass. I know when we landed there before, there was a lot of dust. So there's mass on top of it with a lot of moon dust, because I know we were reading recently how the lunar landers were landing, because we're getting ready to start designing some new ones actually, and how much vision the folks had. Were they able to fly it? How much systems they used to get down to the surface? And so how is it illuminated? Well, it's illuminated actually by a really big light bulb in the sky, our sun. It's actually how we have days as well. So we see the moon because it is offset from Earth. Usually when we see like a full moon, like here's Earth, here's the moon, and the sun is over here and the sun is shining on it. And so that's why we can see it. And we see it just like when it's a part of a moon, because our planet is actually getting in the way and cutting in front of it and creating a shadow. So at some point in time, our Earth is all the way lined up with the moon. You can't see my other hand, but then at other times it's only partially lined up, and that's how we see different parts of the moon. On the other side, the sun is actually shining on it, and that's how we see the moon. So pretty cool. Good question. Very good question.
So the core energy source is really our sun, and the moon is just reflecting light off of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Well, I did talk about our program serves from the womb to the tomb. And although this is not yet the tomb, this question comes from Deborah, who's 66 years old. And she wants to know, is the astronaut field just limited to scientists?
Oh, no. You know, we have a amazing selection of people here in the office. It's actually pretty astounding sometimes. And that's one of the coolest things is we get to share ideas from people from all different background. So of course we have, like myself, military people because we're test pilots or operators. We have a submariner, we have a Navy SEAL, for example, as well as helicopter pilots and jet pilots, not only from the Navy, but from all the services. So we have scientists, we have classic scientists like chemistry, biology, physicists. We have engineers from every type of engineering that you can have. For example, we have doctors, we've had a veterinarian, as a matter of fact, and we have teachers. But everybody has some STEM in their background. They've either have a degree or taken, you know, a lot of classes or whatever. They have some science, technology, engineering, or math in their background. And why? Because that's, like we just talked about, those core things are the core topics are what make us ask the questions, wonder, actually be really great observers. I would say we're not really all experts when we go to space because it's a combination of all of those things, but we're good at asking questions, good at making observations, good at talking to the investigators who are doing the science experiments up on the International Space Station, for example. So those are, so that we want to make sure we have people who can learn. That's the biggest thing, and proven that you can learn. That's our key role here.
Very cool, very cool. So as a lifelong learner, Deborah, at 66, hey, it's never too late to just keep that open mind, be ready to learn. So we're gonna go from Deborah, 66, to Claire Sanderbeck, age 6. And you're gonna love this one. What should I do to become an astronaut when I'm older?
I love it. And that's a good point that she brings up. When she's older, you know, like one of the things we have to worry about in space is bone density. We want to grow into a normal human being. So I would suggest, yes, wait a little bit until you've all grown up, because space might have a little bit of a factor on how your body grows and changes. So we'll wait till you get older, a little bit older. I think you should do well in school. Of course, everyone always says that, do well in school, you know, get a science, technology, engineering, or math type of background, just because it helps you ask questions, wonder, be curious. And that's what we want people to do. But we also want people to be team players. You never do any of this by yourself. So maybe get involved in some sports teams or scouts or something that you have to work with other people. And so you start to understand other people, work and learn and play with other people actually up in space and get along, because it is a big team. We have not only the folks that live in space, but we also have mission control who helps us while we're up on these spacecraft. And we need to know how to communicate with those people. So be part of a team. Do well in school, be part of a team, and grow up a little bit. And then, but don't grow up too much in your mind. And then get out there and be a space explorer, because we need more of them. It's coming up. Everybody's going to have access to space before too long. 6, you're the right age.
There you go, Claire. Words of wisdom, words to live by. So you're listening to the Color of Science Digital Edition. I'm Dr. Frederick Bertley, President and CEO of COSI, the #1 science museum in the nation, according to USA Today, 2 years in a row. Really proud about that. And of course, this is our incredible interview with Astronaut Williams, who's sharing all this wonderful advice, her stories, the legacy of all her work. We have time for 3 more questions. So I'm going to go through them. This one is from Cecilia, age 7. What do you have to do to be selected for missions? And I love that question, because if I can add a little bit to that question, talk about the fact that there are a lot of astronauts that actually don't necessarily go up in space. So talk about kind of how big the astronaut corps might be. And then to Cecilia, age 7, a wonderful question. What do you have to do to be selected for a specific mission?
I love it. I absolutely love it too, because, you know, people say, or people think that that's all we do is go to space because we're astronauts. But I've been here for 20 years And, like I've gone to space for about a year. The rest of the time, we're training, getting ready, supporting each other, working on the next project, providing our expertise to make sure the next guys can get ready to go to space. So there's a lot that goes on that we're actually not flying in space. So how do you get selected for your mission, right? Very interesting. We look at people's background and what they're good at, how they contribute, and we also try to meld people together to make a good team. We don't need to have 4 doctors on one space mission, for example. That would sort of be using, that skill set way too much. So we want to like spread it out a little bit, make sure that there's, people who have maybe an engineering background, a biology background, an operation background, make sure that all that mixes all together. Now, we don't always have the luxury of doing that exactly like that. And I mentioned earlier, we're a little bit of a jack of all trades, master of none. We all have to learn a lot of things to be able to go to space. So part of that is how to do spacewalks. So you have to be in pretty good physical shape to be able to get in that big white space suit that has its own little spacecraft, as a matter of fact. So you got to learn how to do that. So you got to stay in good shape to be able to do that. Practice that. We also fly the robotic arm. That is like a big crane, but it has hand controllers just like an airplane. And we have to learn how to do that. And that takes a little hand-eye coordination and some skill and some practice. I just came from my practice of a thing that we call track and capture, where a spacecraft comes up to the space station. We take the robotic arm and grab it out of the sky. So we have to practice that. So a little bit of hand-eye coordination, like I mentioned. So we have to do that. So then you also have to make sure, I mentioned physical fitness for your spacewalking, but also physical fitness to make sure your body is ready to make that big adaptation to living up in space, and then be able to live up there and then come back. So part of that is also knowing how to use the physical fitness equipment that we have up there. We have a treadmill, we have a bicycle, we have weightlifting equipment, all of that to help with the bone density and our muscle mass to keep us normal human beings to come back. So all of this, and also not to mention, there's a little bit book learning too. You have to learn how your spacecraft works, how how you breathe oxygen in the spacecraft, how you fly the spacecraft, how the computers work, how to fix all that stuff. Also, in case it breaks, because we can't call the repairman up there, we have to do it ourselves. So all of that stuff we learn, and we have to get ready to go to space. And so we try to figure out, like I mentioned, a good complement of people that have those skills, that we could spread it out. So not one person has to do everything. We just try to teach everybody new skills. And so they're all part of that team. And then it's actually sort of also a list. Like we want usually to fly an experienced person with a new person, so they can give them tips and techniques and make sure that they're ready to go. And we sort of try to pass off to those new people, here, next time you're going to be the lead for the spacewalk. Next time you're going to be the one who's going to drive the robotic arm to grab that thing, or you're going to lead doing that science experiment. You've got the expertise now. So we try to train each other. So that's another way that we make selections. But we want to get everybody a flight in space, as many people as possible, so we can keep doing this, so we can keep training the new guys, and we have a continual presence in space. We've had somebody living in space since October of 2000. For your whole life, people have been living in space, if you can imagine that. It's pretty incredible. Yeah, so we have a lot to do. We're ready for you. So come on, get ready.
All right, you heard that, Cecilia. That's a great answer. And so Rashawn K has a kind of follow-up question. Basically, I'll just read the question and you can take it what you want. What would you, since you listed all those skills, what would you say is the most important skill to be an astronaut?
Wow. I think, honestly, the most important skill is getting along with other people. People think that space is like you're a little bit in isolation, but it like I mentioned, it takes a team to get you up into space. So not only, I mentioned mission control, but it's all the people who get the rocket ready, get the spacecraft ready. They want to interact with you. They have to interact with you. So they know how to put you in there. They know how to build your spacesuit. They know how to, where to pack your stuff, how to make sure that everything about you is optimized for that mission, because they know that you're at this pinnacle where you're going up to live and work in space, represent the planet. So you want to be able to work well with people. I think that is honestly number one, as well as being healthy and physically fit, ready to take, so your body can take on those challenges. All those other things that I mentioned, that's all, if you can learn, and I mentioned earlier before, we want people who know how to learn, that have proven that they can learn. If you can learn all that other stuff, but it's hard sometimes to teach people how to get along with others if it's not second nature. We want people who get along with others. And honestly, it's not hard. You just got to sometimes dig deep and understand that everybody brings something to the table. Everybody brings a skill and a knowledge set, and looks at a problem potentially different from you. And you need to take the time and listen to their answer or their process, their solution. And you might learn something and go, wow, that I never thought of that. And those are the type of people that we want to be astronauts.
Well, fantastic. Okay, we're getting close to the end of the program here. Here is the final question. And this is actually a great question to kind of sum up your incredible career. And so this is from Yusoshi C, age 26. And Yusoshi wants to know, what was your course of action that got you where you are? So you gave us the whole history coming up as a youngster, wanting to be a veterinarian, joining the military, joining the Navy, learning to fly the helicopters, then getting into the ocean, et cetera, making it to NASA. So we saw that trajectory, but if you could sum that up in a course of action that got you to where you are today, how would you answer that?
I think persistence, honestly, if it was just one word, just like two words I'll use: persistence and curiosity.
Love
just,
that.
You just don't give up. It's like, I didn't get what I wanted. That's okay. I'm gonna keep going. And then oh wow, that's pretty cool. I want to try that. So those, I think, to combine together, I think that's what got me where I am.
I love that. And ladies and gentlemen, I can't make this up. She just said, oh, I wanted to do that. I didn't get what I want. Keep going. She didn't get what she wanted, and she became an astronaut. Not bad advice, I got to tell you. Folks, listen to Astronaut Williams, because clearly she knows what she's talking about. That is fantastic. So, okay, we're getting close to the end of the program. I want you to stay with us. One of the things we do is we call it a STEAM challenge. I'm going to just share my screen for the audience and walk them through it. And then I'm going to come back to you for some closing remarks from you, Astronaut Williams. So just give me about 2 minutes here. Stay with us. Let me share my screen. So you're listening, of course, to the Color of Science program, digital edition. This is brought to you by COSI Connects and the Color of Science program from the #1 science museum in the nation. That's COSI, the Center of Science and Industry. We are interviewing none other. You can see her on the screen here, Miss Sunita Suni Williams, AKA Navy pilot, AKA astronaut, extraordinaire. Here's another fun photo of her. Check this out. She talked about her spacesuits itself being an almost aircraft in its own way. Just a really cool statement. Never thought of it that way, but look at this picture. It definitely makes the point. So with that, and I mean, you're gonna have to come and comment at what the background shot here, because folks, this is not photoshopped. This is a real amazing shot of Astronaut Williams with this incredible background. But with that, let's get to our STEAM challenge. As you know, we think science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics are critical for our lives. And so with that, today's theme, the theme for July, is do any kind of art, 2D art, 3D art, painting, drawing, scribble, anything you want to do that captures what you think an astronaut and space means to you. Okay, so again, July's theme is astronauts in space. Submit that to V Bowers, that's Vanessa Bowers at COSI.org. The deadline is August 1st, so you have some time to do this. You have just over a month. Again, any medium will be accepted. And the third prize will get 3 of our COSI Connect kits. And of course, yes, one of those 3 will be our space kit, so don't worry about that. The second prize will be this really cool hologram machine. So really pulling at your engineering and computer science interests. And then the first prize is an iPad mini, so you can chart and follow all of Astronaut Williams's voyages and expeditions, and of course do everything else that the tablet can do. So again, submit any kind of medium to vbowers@cosci.org, and you'll be entered into this competition, and we look forward to seeing your entries. Again, this is the Color of Science Digital Edition. The first Thursday of every month, I get to interview an amazing distinguished guest. This interview for July is just unbelievable with astronaut Sunita, AKA Sunny Williams. I'm going to unshare my screen, and Astronaut Williams, I'm going to ask you for some final thoughts, advice, comments you want to share with our audience.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I love that you brought up STEAM, because, you know, art is just incredible. It opens the door of the quote unquote impossible. I love engineering, but engineering sometimes is like, it's very logical. And if something is not logical, it's impossible, right? Or that's what we think. But art actually allows us to use our imagination, our creativity to go beyond what we presently know. And that's pretty powerful, because we presently know this. We think further than that. And that curiosity makes us figure out, use all of our STEM things, science, technology, engineering, and math, to figure out how to make that impossible possible. I think that is totally key. I think Einstein said something to the effect of, you know, knowledge is useless without an imagination. And it's perfect. So STEAM is really the key door to discovering, exploring the future. So I love that you guys brought that up, and you guys have this contest. It's pretty awesome.
Very cool. Well, thank you for that shout out. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first from astronaut Sunita Sunny Williams. She quoted Einstein saying that logic is nothing without imagination. But she said, STEAM takes the impossible and makes it possible. That's a better quote than Einstein's. I love that. Astronaut Williams, we got to write that down. That is a classic one. It's been an absolute pleasure to meet you by Zoom, to have this interview, to share your story with our listeners and viewers. Thank you for spending so much time with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you. It's been a treat.
You got it. Folks, this is another edition of the Color Science program brought to you by COSI, the Center of Science and Industry. I want to give a shout out to Vanessa Bowers, the person who runs this program, as well as Jordan Radar, the technology person at COSI, to help bring this about. Astronaut Williams, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and we will be following you on your next missions. And I said that with an S. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
All right, you got it.